Hi, I'm George Jackson, executive producer and host of GovExecTV. Welcome to HPod, our video podcast series with HP Inc. It's episode 4, Smarter Tools for a Stronger Workforce. If you missed episode 3 with Justin Hancock, Jeff Smith, and Kristen Hempstead from HP Federal, hit rewind. We explored how federal agencies can securely harness AI and edge computing to meet the mission without exposing operations or infrastructures to new supply chain risks. Today, we're shifting gears a little bit, but staying firmly in the transformation lane by talking about the future of the government workforce and how smarter tools will reshape where and how federal employees get things done. The return to office era is here, and that shift can come with serious baggage like legacy tech, outdated policies, mounting costs, and an influx of workers walking back into offices that haven't been touched in years. But it's also a big opportunity, a chance to reimagine workspaces, upgrade tools, foster collaboration, and create seamless, secure environments that actually work for the people who work in them. Here to dig into all of that and much, much more, Mike McGinn, Business Development Manager, HP Federal. Mike, welcome. Good to see you, sir.
Great to be here. Thank you.
His colleague, Ed Robin, their U.S. Technical Director of Consulting. Ed, good to see you too, sir.
Good to see you, George.
So kick things off, Mike. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. What moves you? What grinds your gears? Take it any way you want there, sir.
Good. Well, again, thanks for having us today. We're looking forward to kind of sharing our thoughts and comments around RTO. My background, I have been with Poly and HP now for over 10 years. Before that, I was with Cisco for 17 years. Most of that was in Europe. And before that, I worked for Honeywell, also in Europe. And during that time, I've had the opportunity to work with lots of different governments, both in the U.S., the federal government, but also governments and militaries over in Europe. And what I learned is that, these national networks are important. They are important national assets in the support of a government, in the defense of a nation. And they don't always operate or look at their operations in terms of, saving 5 cents on a foot of pipe. Right? It's the mission that's important. And today, you're seeing more and more the pace of change within the federal government move quicker, right? They need to make better decisions in a shorter amount of time. And what moves me is, and why I'm so happy to be with HP, is because we offer the solutions, right? Services as well as hardware to help organizations make better decisions through our PC, through our print, through our voice, and our video. And that's really what moves me.
So Ed, like Pitbull, Mike is Mr. Worldwide, UK, great background. Tell us about you, sir, and sort of what set of skills you bring to the table for this conversation around workforce.
So I've been with HP for the past 20 years by virtue of Polycom and Plantronics and Poly. And across that time frame, a lot of the focus was originally just focusing on the video conferencing room, right? Just the long table in the room and enabling and helping, agencies and customers, keep those rooms relevant and enable communications and have that dialogue, have that continuity. But a lot has changed because what's happened is the ecosystem platforms like your Microsoft Teams and Zoom, they've become quite expansive in the past couple of years, especially with the COVID effect. And with that comes helping customers navigate through a lot of different nuances that they really didn't have to deal with before. So how do you communicate seamlessly with your conference room systems? How do you make sure it's relevant to the native interoperability of the type of ecosystem that you're with? Also, all of the devices now. Right? Before it was just the cameras and the microphones and the conference room system. Now you have your headsets, intelligent headsets, you have collaboration bars, you have telephony handsets, you have laptop computers, you have printers, all of this sourcing from HP. And so we have a really great value proposition as far as being able to provide, a lot of insight in how collaboration could work, but on the same token, being able to provide a seamless experience and close to a zero training experience as well with our systems. So what drives me is that we're in another technological evolution. We've been through convergence before with network and IP and telephony, and we're going through another one again, and then just add that AI layer on top of that, right? So now it's getting really exciting because there's a lot of change that's happening, and all of the users have to be able to embrace that change and understand how to use it as well.
You can tell that Ed is a glass is half full kind of guy, embracing that change, the level of excitement. There are a lot of people on the other side of that use this phrase, and they've been using it since 2020, unprecedented times, Mike. I mean, he mentioned the pandemic. We're now in this return to office push right now, a bit unprecedented in nature. At least initially, what kind of challenges are you seeing across the board? What are agencies up against?
Sure. So you're right. You both talked about it. There is this pace and scope of change that is occurring. It's really, maybe not once in a lifetime, but certainly it's very rare. And, you hear about DOGE and you hear about tariffs, but what's on the forefront of a lot of leaders' minds today is return to office. How do I bring everybody back to a safe, productive office environment in a fairly short period of time? And at HP, we really spent a lot of time kind of considering an engagement model, because from all the conversations we've had with various leaders over the last 6 to 9 months, there is no central playbook that has come down that says this is how you implement RTO, or return to office. And what we recommend is putting a plan together and essentially breaking it down into 2 areas. The first are short term. What do we need to do to bring people back to the office? So we look at that plan, that's a 30 to 45 day plan, right? What needs to be done in terms of the printers? Are they available? Is the toner there? Are your PCs operational? Are your rooms going to support video, right? You're going to have larger room videos, you're going to have huddle space videos, and you're going to have areas for private conversations. Is the organization ready for that?
Yeah.
Then longer term, we recommend taking a look at the workflow, because you have people that are coming back to the office that have been gone for 3.5 years, but you also have people that were hired during the pandemic, and a lot of the younger staff may have never worked in an office setting before. So it's important to kind of get this feel. And then, the other challenge that leaders have talked to us about is they want to bring them back, they want to make them productive. We also have to continue to support the mission, and we need to find ways to save money. So there are a lot of factors that go into that, and we believe that the solutions that we offer, our services through our partners with HP Solutions, really help solve this return to office and make it as quick and painless as possible.
Ed, I read that plan that Mike referenced, and the short-term 30-day onboarding and productivity sort of bullet points that you pull out, one word really stood out to me, and that's the word triage. It says, think triage. What needs to be done to get the office ready? Triage, to me, has like a context or a connotation that this is serious. There is serious stuff on the line, and you need to act on this right now. Was that intentional for agencies? Is this like they really need to get the ball moving?
Well, if you think about it, so what we're going through now is almost like the reverse of the COVID effect, right? So when COVID occurred, everyone having to now immediately, in a triage capacity, having to work remotely, had to be enabled. And a lot of the systems that they were using at home were not really designed for remote work, right? Maybe they had a laptop that had some, low quality speakers. They did not have a headset, and they didn't have a good quality webcam. The quality of the optics inside of the laptop's camera was just substandard, right? So they really needed to be enabled. So now the reverse of that is happening, where now all of that workforce is coming back, and they're coming back to the headquarters. But at the same time, agency decision makers have a lot on their plate. I mean, seriously, a lot on their plate.
Yeah.
Because they have so many variables that they have to deal with, and a lot of change and perpetually happening. So they know that some employees will be retiring, some will be, laid off, right? And then remote employees that do come back, they don't know the volume of employees that'll be coming back. And so not understanding the trends and the traffic inside of their office environment, they have these pre-existing conference rooms that are now legacy. Their identity is not the same as what the workflow that the users remotely have been using. Like ecosystems like Microsoft Teams and Zoom have become like mainstays. And so those rooms need to become relevant and able to support productivity and enable to support the individuals that come back and have them immediately hit the ground running and be productive and be enabled. And so they're accustomed to a certain set of tools. And so when we talk about triage, we talk about the fact that these rooms haven't been used for quite a while. Their software is way out of date. They may not even be riding the ecosystems that are currently the migrated platforms that agencies are going to. And so you have to do a health check. You have to understand that the optics are still good on the cameras, that the microphones are still good, that the room is the right size. Is the room accommodating? And so what we can do is we bring to the table the ability to come into the room with partnerships and assess the rooms and identify based on the ecosystems whether or not they need to be uplifted, and if they're uplifted, what that enablement means. From an HP perspective, the amount of products and portfolio that we can offer to enable those rooms, it's significant because we can bring like multiple cameras. We provide a lot of AI enhancements now that didn't exist 4 years ago that provide a lot of dynamic visibility into the room. So for example, in the past, people would they'd make a point of looking at the camera during a video call. Right? We don't have to do that anymore, right? The camera's actually looking at you. But on top of that, the AI layer is now making sure that it understands who the active speaker is, whether or not there's multiple active speakers, and whether or not the framing needs to be, reappropriated so that the users on the distant end feel like they're really engaged and inside of that conference room, right? So those are things that need to happen in order for the volume of unknown amounts of return to work employees are coming to be able to hit the ground and start running. Same goes for open spaces. So you have open spaces and cube spaces. Not everything's going to be a conference room. So there's a level of like noise mitigation that needs to occur as well, right? If you're sitting in a cube and you're trying to do your work and you're trying to be productive, and well, when I was at home, I had my headset and my laptop and I can do this, all day. Well, now I have noises in the background and people chattering and stuff. So you need to really be able to mitigate the noise at the same time to enable and have that continuity of productivity as well. So those are the types of things that we can address moving forward as we look to support the returning workforce.
Mike, I want to build on that, but give you a little bit of a long-winded contextual lead-in to my question for it. I mean, Ed mentions being able to kind of flip the script for an organization in this time frame, use this return to office to make things improved from, a productivity perspective, a facilities perspective, the way the technology works together. I'm going to pull back something out of that report I mentioned earlier. Employees are returning with expectations for seamless, hybrid-ready collaboration tools that support diverse work styles. What does that mean to you, and how can organizations take this moment in time and really lean into the seamless aspect of things for the future of work?
Sure. So there are a lot of things that have been going on well before the pandemic. DoD moved to a cloud-based environment. It's a Microsoft O365 cloud. And it's been hardened. It's called Impact Level 5, okay? And virtually all of DoD and good parts of the civilian federal government are on it. And what that allows them to do is move applications up to the cloud. And there's a lot of cost savings associated with that. Now, one thing that started before the pandemic, but the pandemic has really accelerated, is this idea that you're taking voice and video, which used to sit at the data level, and you're moving it up as a desktop application. So Ed talked about Zoom, Teams. You can also do it with Zoom, but with Teams, you now can use your voice and video straight off your laptop, right? Or straight off your phone, or when you're traveling, you can use it. What that does is, it gives people the same sense of being in meetings, regardless of where they are, But just as importantly, there's a huge cost savings because right now the government spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year in support of these older PBX systems.
Yeah.
These older systems that have been around for 30 plus years. And now they're able to use Teams directly connect into the network. And as I said, have voice and video there. So the pandemic has really accelerated forward this movement and adoption of Teams. HP happens to be the only company that has a hardened IL5 accredited voice endpoint. So you can take one of our endpoints, either a conference phone, a headset, or handset, and connect it into right away into a federal IL5 cloud. The other thing is, I'd like to talk a little bit about personas, because within the government today, people recognize there are lots of different types of roles, right? Some people are always in garrison. Some people are deployed. Some people will continue to work in a hybrid environment. And what people want is technology that bends and shapes to the way they operate, whether it's headsets or whether it's having the same iconography on your phone, on your PC, wherever you are. That's what they're looking for. That same sense of, I may be traveling, I may be downrange, but I have that same sense of being in a meeting with everybody that's sitting around a conference room.
In a word, Ed, I'm thinking agility here and the way that agencies navigate these strategic plans around return to office. If I can get maybe a little personal for a moment, in 2020, this studio that we're sitting in didn't exist. I mean, our video audience can see it. The radio audience is going to have to just take our words for it. But our office is not going to kind of come back in the way in person that it was before because the employee base has outgrown this physical space. It's much more diverse across the country than it's ever been before. So say you go into an organization for the public sector and you're trying to help them with that triage, that strategic plan. How do you help them ensure that it's agile enough to meet their needs so that they're going to get the mission objectives that Mike's talking about, those cost savings, improvements to efficiency and effectiveness of their teams? How do you ensure agility, sir?
So, first of all, from a cost savings perspective, there's a lot of effort and ongoing with HP as far as like the PCs and sustainability and energy efficiency, right? So from a cost savings perspective, you got to look at it a couple different ways. The sustainability aspect drives a lower cost for the PCs using a lot more recycled goods. And we're starting to see a lot of that make its way into the Poly portfolio as well. So now these conference rooms are much more reduced cost, but high impact as far as the value proposition that they bring. So that's important from a cost savings perspective as well. Software relevance is important. If your software is not up to date, then and time and money is also a productivity exercise as well. So if your software is not up to date, it's not current. If your licensing isn't up to date, then these are things that are going to get in the way of you being more agile, right? And then on the same token, the collaboration bars that we have, they can be multi-identity in different instances. So if you find that you're an agency that's moved to, let's say, a Teams platform, we can speak natively in that language to the point that Mike made earlier about having a familiarized user interface that's very analogous to what they were used to at home. But then if that agency wants to use a different ecosystem platform, we can do that as well. So that's the adaptability and the agility that we kind of bring to the table from the collaboration side of it. So I think that's important because the decisions aren't set in stone yet. And like I said before, there's a lot of variables, and I don't want to call them blind sides, but you just never know what the next decision may be or need to be.
Yeah, if I could just pick up on that for a second. When you talked about platforms, HP does not have its own proprietary platform. So we work with, native Teams. We work with native Zoom. We work with Google and other platforms. Because at the end of the day, the government will always have a variety of platforms they're using. But what they don't want to do is keep switching out solution, the endpoint,
Yeah.
or they don't want something that's not native. They want point and click and go, right? And that's really one of the big advantages. We are agnostic in terms of the platform, and users kind of depend on us for that, knowing that these platforms change frequently.
Let's talk about the workforce for a bit. Mike, you mentioned DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, earlier in our conversation, shifting in a way how agencies view efficiency, how they view accountability. Have you started to see some of those efforts like funnel down to the workforce itself, the workforce IT strategies for an organization?
Yeah, we have. We found that organizations are much more emboldened now, where there may not be an RTO playbook. People do feel emboldened to make changes for the benefit of the organization. And I see leadership much more amenable to making changes today. And I think that's, frankly speaking, one of the advantages of DOGE, that ideas are coming up organically. Leadership is much more amenable to these ideas, and they're moving forward. I mentioned this idea of taking voice and video and making it a desktop application. It's taken quite a while for that to happen. DOGE has moved it forward because there's such a cost savings, and it provides so much more flexibility to those users out there. The other thing I would say is you're dealing with a new generation of government workers, and they have grown up with technology. They're comfortable with technology, and they are bringing their ideas to the forefront much more so than I've seen in years in the past. And it's an exciting time to be involved with the government because there is this sense of let's try something out. If it doesn't work, let's try something else out. Mission is always important. It's critical, but ideas are coming to the surface that people are willing to experiment with.
Are they also, Ed, impatient? And I use impatient in the best possible sense of the word, like relative to technology. You don't want something that's clunky. You don't want something that doesn't communicate with other parts of your organization. You don't want to go and try and press print on something and have it not connect to the cloud where it's just going to pop right off the printing press there. Are they also impatient in the best sense of the word?
In the best sense of the word, I'd say it's an expectation, right? Like what Mike was saying before, that, the different kind of workforce that's coming back has a predefined expectation. And, I've heard in the past in meetings where, I could have done all of this at home, right? So I think that's the big issue, is that you have to be as enabled in the office as you were at home. Otherwise, you'll start to measure and see productivity levels go down. And so I think that's key. I think that's very key for this.
One through line through this entire HPod series, security. And it's always top of mind. Agencies have to think about it as job number one, as people have told me over and over and over again. How can agencies build more secure, more resilient tech stacks, Ed, especially for these hybrid environments of the future?
Well, sure. So first of all agencies have their own security profiles that they apply, right? So that's foundational. But then when it comes, for instance, with PCs, at the hardware level, at the boot up sequence, at the BIOS level, all of that needs to be secure. And then once you get it past that into the operating system and then to the application, you need to make sure that your data integrity is in place, that there's threat analysis that's happening, that you have data protection. So that's just from the PC. And what's changing is the AI layer, which now you have dedicated processors that are working in parallel to your current workflow to ensure that security and that stability. What's really exciting is that the AI layer is now actually taking advantage of the resources aside from the chips, but the actual peripherals built into the laptops. So I'll give you some examples. In the past, we had on our laptops a button that would blur the screen or obfuscate the screen so that it couldn't be viewed from different angles, right? To give you that added layer of privacy. That's something that you can't really mitigate with security posture in the agency when that laptop leaves the agency and goes to another location, say at a Starbucks or some mobile location. So, but now with AI, we're taking advantage of the camera. So the camera's paying attention to you. So even if you're not on a video call, the camera's looking at you and it's looking at your eyes, and it's ensuring that you are looking at the screen, but it's also paying attention to your periphery. And if it catches wind of a head in the background, it's going to blur that screen. It's going to look for shoulder surfing, right? And that's an automated process. And we'll give you a warning that, someone may be looking at your screen. And that's inherently different than how things used to be in the past. A lot of times people would just use their laptops, or they get one of those little flappy things you put on top to like darken the screen. So times have changed, but now AI is like, it's revolutionizing this even more so that you have like all this transparent technology that's really implementing more security at the layers that really can't be addressed from the foundational architecture and the software and such, but the physical layer as well.
Mike, I always love when I have a conversation with a systems engineer and they describe the little flappy thing that goes over the cover of your computer.
Technical term, yeah.
Anything you want to add on security, sir?
No, I guess the only other thing I would add is that HP doesn't believe in bolting on security. It starts with the design and talked about the BIOS all the way through the development of the solution set. I would also say that HP takes our products that are supported by the federal government through the Joint Interoperability Test Center. It's in Fort Huachuca. It's called the JITC. And you're not going to attach something onto a DOD or government network, DOD network in particular, that has not been JITC accredited. We have full-time engineer down in Fort Huachuca, and all our gear that touches a DOD network is fully JITC accredited. I would also say that we are very good at providing the government TAA, right, the Trade Agreement Acts, which means that our equipment is produced or substantially transformed in either in the U.S. or friendly countries, and that just should say that we really take the sense of security and understand the government's mission. Right? We're not bringing equipment that's made in China. We're not bringing equipment that has not been tested and accredited by the federal government. We've been in business a long time. We understand the mission, and we support it.
I've sat down a number of times with your colleague, Dr. Tommy Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
Most recently, on the first episode of this HPod series, one of his passion areas, I'll call it, is quantum information science. And it's partly where I want to take us as we close out this program, future-proofing organizations. When you go in and you're talking to maybe a visionary chief information officer, chief information security officer, etc., and they are trying to harden or future-proof their organizations, what are you telling them to do right now? Give them some advice as we close out this program.
Well, future-proofing, again, I had mentioned software relevancy, but also adaptability. We kind of touched on this already in a different way. So just the ability to have a return of an investment on your investments, an ROI to support the ability to adapt and change as your organization starts to change. And so these are things that we can do with our collaboration bars. And one thing we didn't really touch on is also the fact that, like, when it comes to, like, intelligent headsets, we also make a point across our portfolio to have native interoperability across all of these systems. So when you are using a Teams system or a Zoom system or a Google system, you have that assurance that that headset's going to work, right? And all of the noise mitigation technology is going to work with that. Same goes with the collaboration bars. If they choose to change to a different ecosystem, we can make that adaptation as well.
Mike, close us out with just like a nugget of wisdom here, sir.
I think, governments in general, they do three things better than anybody on the planet. They identify risk, they quantify risk, and they mitigate risk because they're mission-oriented. And increasingly, what we see is, especially within the DoD, is they're beginning to say, you know what, we are not experts on maintaining these networks. So we're going to begin to outsource that. We want you to operate them. We want you to support them. We want you to bring in the next version of software, make sure it's tested, right? And so they're outsourcing some of that and bringing it on to industry. And I think industry, HP in particular, is really doing a good job of building our own ecosystem to be able to support these outsourced opportunities. And I think that's you're going to see more and more of that in the future where the government is encouraging an ecosystem within an organization and then go in and kind of cover their entire operations of support. And HP is one of the few companies that really offers a full solution on the edge of voice, of video, of PC, and print.
I've learned so much about empowering a confident return to office with Mike McGinn, Business Development Manager, HP Federal, his colleague, Ed Roman, their U.S. Director of Technical Consulting. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for HPod Episode 4. Thanks again to Mike and Ed for helping us unpack what it takes to support a truly modern federal workforce and learn about some of the tools that can make or break that experience. To our listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. For GovExecTV, I'm George Jackson. See you next time on HPod, or follow us, GovExec Plus, on YouTube. You can check out all 4 of these programs and much, much more. See you there. To learn more about technology solutions for federal, state, and local government agencies, or speak to a government expert, scan this QR code now.